Look, I think she's a bad influence on you. I mean, look at you. You look like shit.
Yeah.
And where's Ricky? I mean, you guys haven't been to class. I haven't seen you around.
Welcome to the Live Life for the Stories Season 4 finale. In order to finish my first year of college, I had to make and screen a narrative fiction short film. I had written a first draft for the film called The Smiling Stone all the way back on September 30th, 2012, and I used it to get a rare opportunity. After completing Film 320 in the fall semester, which is where the Measure J documentary and Broken Vow films came from, I applied with a team of 3 to get into the Film 420 class that spring, taught by Professor Rich Cheatham, with the intent to make this short film called The Smiling Stone. This wasn't the usual class, though. I wrote the script for the film and listed Alex Hackworth and Collin as the people I wanted to take the class with, and then submitted it to Professor Rich Cheatham to see if he would teach that class for us. I was nervous we wouldn't get accepted, since it was usually for seniors about to graduate. But, although he gave me edits on the script, he did approve us and decided to teach the class. We were officially taking the most advanced film production class at Whittier College when we were only 18 years old. The 3 of us met him in his office almost every Friday that semester for updates on how we were doing so that we'd stay on track to have the film completed by finals week. It was the most hands-off class I've ever taken, but it was the most in-depth feedback about my filmmaking that I've ever gotten from a college professor or anyone else. His mentorship and oversight pushed us to deliver more polished products and to strive for excellence in a way we hadn't had pressure to before. And we thrived in that environment. I loved that class, and I even asked Professor Cheatham to be my academic advisor, and he agreed. As for the script itself, I'd been highly influenced by the prevalence of 3 drugs that hadn't been nearly as common or talked about in high school, at least not as a combination. And those drugs were Adderall, steroids, and weed. And I was aware that a couple of student athletes were doing a high amount of all 3. I'd seen a good example of what late-stage addiction looked like when my mother's drug problems had gotten worse, and so that turned into the idea of one focus point, a stone or crystal that provided the effects of all 3 drugs, strength, focus, and relaxation, but could cause obsession, weight loss, and retreat from society. This was Requiem for a Dream meets The One Ring to Rule Them All, except I hadn't seen Requiem yet. But our director of photography, Alex Hackworth, definitely had seen it, and he made me aware of the film as a reference as we reached pre-production. So this took place all semester, so I'm going to be breezing through some time periods that I've talked about in previous episodes, but I thought it made sense to put all this together for the season finale, so bear with me. But because we were taking this film more seriously, we looked for the cast using Backstage.com, like we had for some of the Carpe Diem scenes, and managed to get a couple of fantastic actors to show up for our 2 audition days. Alex Hackworth, Collin, and I went to the 3rd floor of Mendenhall, a building on campus, and set up my camera to audition actors on March 4th. That was the day we met David Carter T., who you might recognize from Angel City or The Disappearance of Madison Bishop. We recorded 2 takes of David Carter T's audition, and I had a pretty good idea of what part I wanted for him.
Ricky, are you alright?
I'm fine.
Have you been outside recently?
No, I've been busy.
Look, man, you gotta stop doing this. You look like you haven't showered or slept in days. When was the last time you ate?
I eat all the time.
That's why you're so skinny. Look at yourself.
Then we got 2 takes of Collin's audition, and I knew the role I wanted for him.
Look, if you couldn't handle it, that's your problem, not mine.
And then Chloe Diaz arrived, and we got her audition next. I'd invited Chloe to audition because she was an actress and a student at Whittier College who'd appeared in some of the plays on campus. I'd met her either through Collin or a Spanish class, but I felt bad that I hadn't found a speaking role for her in Carpe Diem, so I was glad that I could give her a part in this film instead.
And where's Ricky? Neither of you have been in class. I don't see you around. Tell me what's going on.
As always, I'm surprised that more theater majors weren't interested in acting in films, but, to each their own. We got 3 takes of Chloe's audition, and I think I knew what part I wanted for her as well. I preferred to give each actor multiple takes because some people are great actors, but they get nervous under audition pressure, and I give a little acting direction in between takes so they know what we're looking for. I feel like a lot of real talent gets ignored or just overlooked in many audition processes, so I try to give everyone the opportunity to shine if we have time for it, and that day we had plenty of time. I exported the final script of the film the next morning, and then on March 8th we had our second round of auditions, so we went back to the third floor of Mendenhall and set up my camera again. We had 5 parts to cast, and we looked at who would be better for what role, but I already had a pretty good idea since I'd invited them all. We just needed to make sure our assumptions and intuitions were correct. To our surprise, 2 Canadian actresses that I'd invited from Backstage.com had flown out to LA for the week and shown up for the audition. Aadila Dosani, who you might recognize from Joe Pickett or Nancy Drew, and Webb, who you might recognize from Supernatural or Forsaken. They auditioned for us, and I learned a little bit more about them.
Hey, my name is Aadila Dosani, and I'm reading for the role of Mandy. My name is Webb. I'm reading for the role of Maddie.
Ali and Aadila had flown in from Canada to audition for and hopefully act in this film and 1 or 2 others. That felt like we were doing something. I mean, obviously they tried to pack as many films into that trip as possible, but the fact that we had people flying in from out of the country to work with us felt incredible. Ali and Aadila got 2 good parts in The Smiling Stone, and as an 18-year-old director, I felt good about directing professional actresses from another country.
You seen Devin? No, not in a while, but I'm sure he's fine. You should go check up on him.
Somewhere between shooting Carpe Diem and starting college, my career trajectory started to look pretty good on paper, and this was a great example of starting to reap the benefits of that. I was a college student who directed an international feature film, and people were interested in that, even if it was just finding out why it wasn't as impressive as it sounded on the surface, because we did it ourselves and it was underfunded because it wasn't through a studio. However, I also noticed that when some people found that out, they actually thought it was more impressive that we had done pre-production, production, and post-production all on our own, self-financed it, and owned all the rights. So I guess it really depends on your perspective there. Anyway, March 9th was our first day of production, and we shot the scenes with Collin and I first. I was directing, Alex Hackworth was the director of photography, Vishal Kolar was our boom operator, and Collin was essentially our key grip when he wasn't acting. At 12:35 p.m., we got our first shot of scene 1 in my dorm room, which was Collin's character lying in bed being entranced by the stone. That whole scene took us only 9 minutes, so we moved on to scene 18 next, the big argument between our characters. It also took place in my room, and luckily my roommate wasn't there that day. We did the whole scene in 2 angles total by putting wheels on the bottom of the tripod so we could get 2 tracking shots, one for Collin's character's coverage and one for mine. That was a risky move that required a lot of precise blocking, and it took about an hour to get it right. But it worked out, and I think it both added to the intensity of the scene and showcased our ability to do precise blocking and camera movements. We shot scene 20 after that, and I don't want to spoil the film if you haven't seen it yet, so I'll just say it was interior shots of Collin's character. That was only 2 angles and took about 15 minutes, so we were knocking out scenes pretty quickly. Then we moved to Alex Hackworth's room and shot scene 15, which was my character's side of being obsessed with the stone. By 4:22 p.m., we got our first shot of that scene, me on a bed, high and focused on the stone. After that, we moved to scene 16, which was at my desk and required a slow-mo of things being thrown off of the desk and inserts of me looking at my phone. That didn't take too long, and luckily we didn't break anything, so we paused at that point and went to dinner around 5 p.m. at the CI. It was nice to be able to relax and eat for a while instead of trying to shoot straight through the entire day. But we got back to shooting after dinner, and we needed someone to play a small part. So I asked Claimer to do it, since he'd already acted for us in Broken Vow and Carpe Diem, like I talked about in Season 3, Episode 18, and Season 4, Episode 18. So we were able to get a shot of Claimer walking into my room and asking where Collin's character was.
Have you seen Ricky?
Yeah, I think he's in the lounge.
Solid.
We were happy to have him back on set with us, even if it was just for a quick scene. Because I liked that although there were different actors in every film, there were some recurring actors too. We'd made good time throughout that day, and as nighttime hit, we got the exterior shots of scene 7 when our characters left a party, and scene 8, which was immediately afterwards and was when my character gave one of the stones to Collin's character. That was an integral moment in the film because it started the chain of events that caused their lives to go downhill. We wrapped for the night at that point, and although we'd spent most of the day on it, we were happy with the outcome, and I'd just gotten lost in the work, focused only on the project during that time. The shots looked good, the acting felt real, and our efficiency went up throughout the day as we became more comfortable with the gear, the process, and each other. It was the first time Alex, Vishal, Collin, and I had ever been on set together, and possibly the first time Vishal and Collin had even met. So it took us a bit to get on the same page, but I remember us all becoming fast friends by the end of the day. That was important because we'd really have to lock in the next day. On March 10th, Ali Webb, Aadila Dosani, and David Carter T. all showed up to campus to shoot their scenes, and it was an intense day of production. We had to have most of the lines memorized at once, or else speed memorized between scenes and setups. We rehearsed during setup and teardown to stay time efficient, but we knew the clock was ticking the whole day because we had to shoot the last scene before golden hour ended, and it became too dark to shoot outdoors. Around noon, we started shooting scene 4 on the upper quad, which introduced the characters played by Ali, Aadila, and David. It also showed the relationships between all of these characters and kind of hinted at where this story was going. It only took about half an hour, and it seemed like we were off to a smooth start. By 1 p.m., we were shooting scene 5, shot at a table with an umbrella to avoid harsh sunlight. We shot the parts that didn't include Chloe Diaz's character yet because she wasn't on set with us then. We took a quick break from scene 5 to grab a shot at the amphitheater when Chloe Diaz arrived. We just got one angle, an easy shot of the audience cheering for sports players, and we filled the frame with everyone possible, even getting Vishal to sit in the back.
Where's jam? Give me some jam. Just kidding.
Then we went back to shooting scene 5 to get the rest of that scene, including Chloe's character's lines that we hadn't been able to record before.
Gonna need it. Sorry.
Okay, keep it rolling, keep it rolling.
Keep rolling, continue.
Staying time efficient however we could. At 2:30 p.m. we shot scene 17B in the Rose Garden, which was my character talking to David's character, and by then I was happy that things were going well, that we were still on time, and that the crew had had a day of shooting beforehand, so we felt more like a well-oiled machine in front of these professional actors. After that, we went to a large classroom called Hoover 100 and set up for scene 14 in what was supposed to be a full classroom, but we had to slow down at that point because it was just hard to get everyone to show up all at the same time. I called and texted all sorts of people, and I was able to get Matthew Aranda, June Nunez, Rachel Teagan-Camp, Tanya Ramirez, Haley Holmgren, and the friend I tutored in French to show up and sit in as classmates for that scene. I even took over as boom operator and had Vishal Kolar sit in the back again so we could fill one more chair. At 3:56, we got a behind-the-scenes shot of me placing actors and going through the blocking, and by 4:07, we got our first shot for that scene. It was now less than 3 hours until sunset, so the pressure was on. It took about half an hour to shoot that scene, but I thought it added to the production value to see that many people in the film at once.
You should go check up on him. So.
Yeah.
Scene 7 was in the same room as scene 14, but with different lighting to give it a party atmosphere, a party where the main characters were dancing. We didn't have a good place to shoot that scene, so we relied on lighting to make it work, and luckily it did. Alex Hackworth was fantastic at lighting scenes for the tone and ambiance that we needed.
No, I'm dancing on you.
Look out. Hi, Ricky. Guys!
After that, we moved to my dorm room and shot scene 22, an interior scene in which Aadila's character happened upon the stone while looking for my character in his room. That took about 20 minutes, ending with a close-up of Aadila's eye widening as she saw the stone, hinting at the possibility that she might become entranced by it as well. At that point, we hurried outside to get scene 17C. This was the last scene of the day, shot at golden hour in the Rose Garden, so we had to shoot it quickly before that nice orange glow faded. We got our first shot at 6:36 p.m., and we managed to get that warm light we've been hoping for, but we had to work quickly before it faded. At 6:53 p.m., we got our Abby Singer shot, named after the filmmaker Abby Singer's famous phrase, "This and one more."
Couple days? I haven't seen you in 3 weeks.
Then at 6:54 p.m., we got our martini shot, and the sun set only a few minutes afterwards. I was very happy with this full day of shooting, overjoyed that we'd gotten the timing right for that final scene, and I thanked everyone heartily when I said goodbye. We had 2 days of additional photography for the Smiling Stone. On March 13th, I changed into workout clothes so Alex Hackworth could shoot me playing and practicing ultimate Frisbee for scene 10, and that took a grand total of 6 minutes. About 3 weeks later, on April 7th, Alex, Collin, and I got the last scenes and pickup shots of the Smiling Stone and called it a wrap on our final project for Film 420. I helped Collin climb up to an overhang above one of the side entrances to Stauffer, so he was 1 floor above ground level. Alex got a test shot to make sure it would work, and then we got our first shot of Collin jumping off as though he was falling, and I had him jump through some branches of a nearby tree so that it proved that there was someone actually falling and it wasn't just visual effects. At that point, we took pride in the fact that we did our own stunts. We got a second shot of him jumping off to make sure we had it, and then Alex tested out a second angle that looked straight up. We recorded him jumping from that angle as well and figured that by cutting between the 2 shots, it would look pretty good. We didn't want to make him jump too many times though, because that was at least a 10-foot drop onto cement every time, so we stopped after he jumped 3 times. Around 2 p.m. we figured out our next setup, and Alex put the camera all the way on the ground so we could get a shot of Collin's body hitting the ground with one hand outstretched for the stone, kind of hammering home that addiction had led him here. We got 2 takes from that angle on the ground, and on the second take we had Collin bounce upwards at the end so we could reverse it and make it look like he hit his head on the ground. I think it looked pretty believable, but I'm not sure what the audience perspective was. Let me know what you think. After that, we went into Stauffer and up to my dorm room to shoot one final scene. I think one of us accidentally pressed record while we were setting up, but after a quick test, we got 2 takes of Collin laying on the bed with the stone in his hand. We got a longer shot of Collin moving around while playing with the stone, and Alex moved as he moved, so the camera captured a couple of cool angles with it. And finally, we switched to a new setup to get me sitting in a chair playing with the stone. We used a different background in the room so the audience wouldn't know they were shot less than 10 feet apart. It took under 2 hours to shoot that day, and that filled in all the gaps we needed to have a complete story with an ending, and a better story, because we could show the obsession with the stones growing over time. Alex Hackworth cut it all together, and we gave a copy of the film to Professor Cheatham, and on May 9th I sent an email that read, "Hey Professor, here's my essay about the Smiling Stone. Thanks for teaching this class for us. I hope you enjoy the film we made. I'm pretty proud of it, and I think that I'll show it to a couple of people for their thoughts, and then send it out to festivals. Thanks again," with my essay attached. And that essay, my final paper for Film 420, was basically just an explanation of and reflections on production of the Smiling Stone, to be graded on my understanding of the filmmaking process and how well I could propose alternative options to specifics that would prevent issues that we'd had without inflating the budget or production time unnecessarily. I think that was the first time I brought up a recurring theme in my filmmaking career. The easiest part of this film was actually shooting it once we had the actors on location. We didn't have any problems with line memorization or acting, and the camera work was usually very good, so the shooting itself went quickly and smoothly as soon as we got things ready. The hardest part was planning. I found myself lagging and not wanting to have to convince everyone we had to meet at this time in the morning and shoot all day while people complained that they had places to be and essays to write. But I did it anyway because it needed to be done. However, that has always been the hardest thing for me to do. I think it's ironic that in the city known for having tons of actors hungry to show people that they're talented, I always struggled to get actors to commit to showing up. All in all, I think the film turned out pretty well. Although I wish the camera had handled low light a little bit better, but for a freshman film, I was really happy with it. I would go on to re-edit that film once the time crunch was over and after Aaron Shee had added some more visual effects for us, and I thought it was a pretty solid project. What I really learned from this is that academic oversight can push creative projects to the next level. Because we never would have put in the time and effort that we did if it wasn't for Professor Cheatham encouraging us to make a better finished product. But with that film completed, I was done with my first year of college, and that was the only year I moved back to Salinas for the summer. But you'll have to wait until season 5 to hear those stories.
I was trying to have that go this way by the camera.